Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Let's go Mets. Yeah.
You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show till Mets do us part. John from Brooklyn, Gibby reps NJ. With the other team, I don't care what your friends say. Mets fans, we focus like a sensei. Listen to the podcast Monday, Wednesday. Made a couple bad plays, but we still won. Character, yup, we're gonna build some. Are you gonna check the pod? Is real fun. Just like Mookie, I will, son. So invest with your heart. Orange and blue till Mets do us part. Spring training, oh yes, it's the start. City Field gritty till Mets do us part. Hit home runs and knock it out the park. Big Apple till Mets do us part. You gotta believe and invest with your heart. Listen to the show.
Available now on all streaming platforms. If you love the New York Mets, check out Till Mets Do Us Part. Enough rapping. Let's get to gabbing.
What is up, everyone? What is up, Mets fans? Matt Ibanez here, a.k.a. Ibby. Till Mets Do Us Part. Checking in with you live on a Wednesday at around 5:30 Eastern Standard. As you can see, I am solo this week, but only for a short period of time. No, my partner and co-host, John Sepinauer, will not be joining us this week. He's, life gets in the way. He has some things he has to tend to, so he will not be able to join us, but I will not be alone. I do have a special guest. If you've cheated and looked ahead into the description of this YouTube video, you already know who it is. Or if you saw my post on Twitter, you already know who it is. But either way, I am going to intro that man in a moment to the best of my abilities. But before we do all of that, it's time to shout out to the chat. What is up to everyone that has joined us? We already have 120 people now here, and I expect that number to keep growing as we go throughout because, as always, our New York Mets are in the thick of every discussion when it comes to this offseason so far, as slow as it's been. And even though something happened last night, which we will cover to start the show, that had nothing to do with our New York Mets, yet the fan base is up in arms, and we will talk about it and get those feelings out. And, as always, this is a therapy session. We'll work through those feelings, and hopefully we can bring some sense to you because, spoiler alert, you don't have to be that upset about that, okay? But we will talk about it. So, again, 150 of you are here right now. Shout out to everyone that is in the chat and having fun with us so far. We got, so many comments so far. We got Charlie in here. We got Brad. We got Darren Rivera. As always, shout out to Darren. Darren's always in everybody's chat and always shouting them out. So appreciate you, brother. Always good to see you. Stanley's in the building. Subway to Shay, Aunt Rivera, my man who will be shouting out shortly. We'll talk about some things when it comes to the QBC that is coming up. But shout out to my good friend and brother from another, Aunt Rivera. Carlos Ortiz is here and so many others. I'm going to get through the chat as best as I can throughout the show. But, our guests, we always have fun banter. So if I lose you in the chat, it's no disrespect. I will get to as many and star as many as I can throughout. But having said all of that, we will dive into a bunch of topics today, whether it's Blake Snell, whether it's Juan Soto, whether it's Pete Alonso, the free agent class in general. There's a lot to cover, and we're going to get into all of it. But before we do all of that, I have to bring on our guest. You know him as the Media Goon. He's often in our chat. He's often throwing jokes. He always likes to stir the pot. But we're here to have a good discussion about all those topics I just mentioned. And, of course, hitting on the Queens Baseball Convention, which is right around the corner. The aforementioned Media Goon himself, Mr. Keith Blacknick. Keith, welcome into the show, my brother. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Abby. How about you?
I can't complain. I'm having a good time. It's Wednesday. The red light's on. You're on the show. We always try to have conversations, whether it's you coming on here, me trying to find time to get on yours. But we finally found the time, and we got almost 200 people joining us for this. We're about a couple minutes in, a couple minutes late too, but all in all, I'm doing pretty good.
We might be a couple minutes late, but we're actually earlier than what John Saponaro was co-hosting right now.
Yes, if John was here, we would still be trying to get on air, probably pushing back the start time to let people know, hey, we're struggling a little bit in terms of John, getting primped and powdering his nose or all the things that he might do. Now, all joking aside, I don't want to throw my partner under the bus while he's not here to defend himself, but just in case he is watching this back or even if he jumps into the comments live, just to have a little bit of fun with them. But like I just said before, Keith, we're going to be talking about a lot of things today, but most importantly, and we'll mix it throughout the show, especially as the crowd continues to pile in, as we're over 200 people so far. And that's the Queens Baseball Convention. You are the face. You are the guy behind the scenes. You're the one running the show and putting things out there. For those who don't know, can you give us a quick breakdown of exactly what the QBC is?
So the Queens Baseball Convention started over a decade ago with us, Mets Police, Darren from the 7 Line, and my buddy Dan that's still with me helping run the QBC. We tried to bluff the Wilpons into doing a fan fest. Mm-hmm. They refused to do a fan fest. They said the fans didn't want a fan fest. And then we turned around and went, I guess we have to do it. So when we did do it, we wanted to make it something that I had fun going to. So it's more like a baseball card show meets a Comic-Con where we have panels, signings, former players, sometimes current players. And it's more of an intimate kind of event than if you went to the team's official fan fest, which I guess they believe that they need to do a fan fest. So they're doing one January 25th.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and like you said, and it's definitely more intimate. And I felt that I know what you're trying to say when it comes to, larger scale events that are more so of a money grab and, just trying to use the name of the team in general to just, take that hard-earned money out of your pocket, but not really give you that bang for your buck. But, based off the packages that you guys offer and all the things that you get from multiple guests to multiple panels to just getting an opportunity to see some art being put out by certain people that'll be having the vendors, I should say, having certain things that you get that is that Met memorabilia. I picked up a lot of cool stuff last year when it came to bobbleheads and things of that nature. So there's always something there for people to do. I believe Catch is there again when it comes to food and drink. Is that correct?
Yep, they're doing the concessions again with a K, Catch Concessions.
And they are fantastic. And like you were saying before, like the intimate settings, obviously the QBC in December, which will be happening in a couple of weeks, is a larger scale event. But you did have the smaller one that was my first introduction to the Queens Baseball Convention, which was a intimate sit-down interview, 75 or so people at Catch having a conversation with Howie Rose. Like I just said, that was my intro to the QBC. And now that I've been able to experience, a full-scale one, and I'll be joining yet again this year, it's always a fun time. So to the 250 plus people that are here right now, and we'll keep on talking about these things and some other happenings and festivities of the QBC throughout the show. If you haven't been to it yet and you are a Mets fan, whether you are a casual Met fan or a diehard Met fan, it doesn't matter. It's got everything there. It's a fantastic time, and it's something that you should all definitely check out. Tickets still available? Yes.
Tickets still available at queensbaseballconvention.com. While we're doing the show live, why don't you guys go to the site, check it out. Any questions, type into the comments, and we'll try to answer any questions.
And when I ask Keith a question later on, maybe I'll add some info into the chat itself so you guys know exactly where you can get some information. But having said all of that, now that we got some of the house cleaning out of the way, like I said, we'll interweave the QBC throughout the show. A lot of things have been said over the last, not even 24 hours when it comes to free agency, our Mets, the Dodgers and what they're doing and the money that's being spent. Late last night, Blake Snell, who was a potential target, I say that in quotations, for our New York Mets because he's a pitcher, his team needs pitching, and he did not have a qualifying offer attached to him. So many thought that was a big fit for the Mets. And some people had it penciled in, potentially, what have you, what kind of contract, how many years. But at the same time, we mentioned a lot of times on the show, even though myself and John liked him a lot, we always said he's a West Coast kid. He's a West Coast guy. We never thought he was really going to leave the West Coast unless the money completely dried up. Late last night, he posts a picture, and he's the one who breaks the news of himself in an LA Dodgers jersey. Now, shortly after that, Mark Feinsand came out, followed by John Heyman. Then, of course, the Jeff Passan bomb dropped that 5 years and $182 million were heading the way of Blake Snell to become the newest addition to the world champion Los Angeles Dodgers. Now, the first thing I'm going to ask you, as just a baseball fan, as a Mets fan, as a fan of a team that just faced these Dodgers and took them, to Game 6 of the NLCS before they bounced us. What are your initial thoughts on Blake Snell going to LA?
He's perfect for LA because LA has pitching. So if he bombs, they have other people around them. The Mets don't have other pitchers around them yet. So if you spend that kind of money on him right off the bat, you don't have any supporting staff that if he gets hurt, if he falters, if he has a bad season, you're going to look really bad having a pitcher like that. He hasn't really pitched a lot of innings over the years.
Mm-hmm.
And when I think Blake Snell, I think he's a solid pitcher, but he's not worth the money that the Dodgers paid him, especially with another deferral.
Right.
If the Mets are able to pull something like that off, fine. But you can definitely tell that the Dodgers weren't thinking like, oh, this is a guy that we're going to have to pay X amount of money to every year. We can defer it and come out on it if he doesn't do well.
Yeah, and obviously the big talking point at the moment for a lot of people in a lot of different shows so far. I was catching some stuff on Foul Territory, and a lot of chatter on Twitter is talking about deferrals and what it really means and circumventing the luxury tax and all that stuff. So I'll try to interweave some of that stuff as well. But Jeff Cohen, echoing what you just said, Snell hasn't pitched more than 130 innings in his career. Now, the interesting thing about that, and I know that's a big talking point for a lot of people, it's also remembering this. You have Ohtani, you have Yamamoto over there. The injuries that rotation is coming off of, a lot of Tommy Johns, a lot of just, trying to provide proper maintenance for some of those pitchers. Tyler Glasnow as well. Like, they're going to have a 6-man rotation. So when you see all those names, they're going to, I don't think Blake Snell is going to have to pitch that much because of the 6-man. If anything, if they're able to, preserve him to that extent, they might actually get an even better version of Blake Snell. So it's very interesting to look at in general. I think it's a great fit. Like I said, I think he's an LA guy. I'm not sure why Mets fans are so upset about it. I really don't get it. And I'm looking at some of the comments, and I want to make sure I bring them in. We got, is it Jacko or Jaco? I think it's your first time here, but welcome. I appreciate you being here, brother. Honestly, Snell wouldn't have been a good fit. He walked too many people, and that was our main problem last year. I mentioned it on the show last week when John asked me, would I rather Snell or Burns? And I said, it was really contract dependent. I would have taken Snell on a shorter as opposed to Burns on the longer. But the big difference between the two I mentioned was, Snell walks a lot of guys and Burns doesn't. But when you're talking about stuff and what I think can last moving forward, I said, I think Snell for the money could be maybe a little bit better. Even though body-wise, I could say Burns might be better fit to last a longer contract. But did I think Snell was going to get $182 million with, X amount deferred from LA? I didn't think he was going to get that much. So that kind of paints a picture, which we'll get into in a moment, when it comes to the free agency pitching market to see how it's going to affect other people in terms of how much they're going to get paid. But do you think, and this is another big talking point for people, do you think that Snell going to the Dodgers is bad for baseball? Do you think it's bad?
No, I don't think it's bad for baseball at all, because even you could put together a superstar team. It doesn't mean that superstar team's going to click. It doesn't mean that superstar team's going to play well together. It doesn't mean that there's not going to be injuries, And also, it's going to bring eyes to baseball too. You want the eyes of baseball. Baseball feels like a dying sport at times. Mm-hmm. That you talk to kids, they want to play soccer, they want to play video games, they're into YouTube, and there's not that passion for baseball like it was when we were growing up.
Yeah,
it's and also with the travel teams and everything, so it's become like a business for kids too. So it's not fun like we used to go out and play in the sandlot and pick up a bat and just go play wiffle ball with their friends.
Yeah.
So if the sexiness with the Dodgers happens on the West Coast. Hopefully there's sexiness on the East Coast with the Mets. And then that'll start bringing in kids and teenagers into wanting to go to baseball games again.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And just bringing up Rosie K's comment here. What's up, Rosie? Good to see you as always. The Dodgers are scary, scary. They are building a dynasty over there. How the hell are teams going to get by them? Look, to Keith's point just now, if the Dodgers are going to be that villain in the sport, everyone loves watching the villain fall. And look, let's not forget also, and shout out to the 414 plus people that are here right now. Make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Till Mets do his part. We just cracked over 900 subscribers. So if you haven't already, make sure you sub the channel so you can join into the chat. But let's not forget that this Dodger team is the same Dodger team that many people going into this year were bashing and saying that they're not that good. They're chokers. Their title doesn't count from 2020. Once it matters, they spend all this money and they don't, as us wrestling fans know, they don't finish the story. They don't do it so now all of a sudden, a lot of Mets fans, a lot of baseball fans have that piss running down their leg because they think, oh my God, no one can beat this team. But I don't subscribe to that. I don't. I think that anyone can get beat. I think momentum is a thing in baseball. I think you can get hot at the right time. Injuries happen. Look, you watched the Dodgers overcome a lot this past season. You came into the year saying, wow, this Dodger pitching staff looks pretty damn good. And then you reach the playoffs and they're having bullpen games because the pitching didn't really end up the way that it did. They got hot and things ended up clicking for them and everything worked and they won. And I don't understand, and I'll follow you up with this, Keith. I don't understand why baseball fans, but specifically Mets fans, because this is obviously a Mets-driven show. I don't understand why Mets fans are so pissed off and bothered by what the Dodgers are doing and saying, oh my God, the Dodgers again, and blah, blah, blah. Are we not the same fan base that was saying, we were lauding and applauding Steve Cohen for saying, the Dodger model, you want to be like the Dodgers? Nothing is stopping this team from doing it. It's just up to them about how they want to go about, paying people and making it work with whatever math that they have to do. Any team, I don't care. And I've said this multiple times on the show, I am not going to sympathize with owners. And I don't believe there's anything as a small market team. I think there are just cheap owners because last time I checked, you got to have a big bank account in order to own a team. And if you don't want to own that team, and you don't want to do what it needs to be done to give the fans a product on the field, then don't own that team. And that's always been the way that I've felt. So I don't know why people are pissed off at a Dodger group that has busted their ass over the last 10 to 15 years to reshape that, post Frank McCourt, to give this fan base what they've wanted, which was a consistent winner. They just won a championship. And what are they doing? They're adding on top of it to keep it going because they're working within a window because they say, we have Shohei Ohtani for the next 9 years, and we're going to win as much baseball as we possibly can. Could that be shitty for the potential sale of the team and whoever ends up getting the team post because of all the deferred money? Hey, they're kicking the can down the road. That's on them. But for now, as a Dodger fan, you're pumped up. And if you're not a Dodger fan, and we're Mets fans, I'm not going to boo them or be pissed off. It's more like, well, I got the owner. I got the money here. We could do the same thing. It might take some time, but we can end up doing this too. So I don't know what we're all crying about.
Getting to your point about the cheap owners not paying, there's a central fund. The more money and more taxes that go in from the luxury tax from the Mets, from the Dodgers, from the Yankees, goes back to the central fund. And that central fund should force teams like Pittsburgh and other quote unquote small market teams like Oakland to have to pay for players. There's no reason why they can't field a good team. So like you said, it's the cheap owners that don't want to reinvest the money that they're getting from the MLB. Basically, the top teams are paying for the lower teams that salary wise when they're coming in with the lower gates and everything. But I never get the whole idea of we're a small market team. We can't compete. Put together a good team. You can compete. It's fine. And I do think that we do need the sexy franchises. You need those franchises that will bring eyes in. Are Mets fans going to be complaining when Cohen starts putting together another team that's not paying off like a Cano salary that's just in the void, where they're actually paying the players that are playing and not on other teams? So what goes for LA, it's going to come around for New York too. So I just want it's going to be an even feel for the right teams. And if you can't, as a team owner, can't field it, you shouldn't be a team owner.
And I understand, and I know a big argument that people are putting out there also for this whole, Dodgers spending and how the Dodgers make more money than other people, and that's how they're able to do this. And not every team is going to pull in as much money. I understand that to an extent. I get that the Dodgers are a high ticket attraction from what they've built, but that took time. But like you just said, they made it a point to build this team into a destination. They're the team that went out and had a strong team in general. And then they said, you know what, we're going to trade for Mookie Betts. And then after getting Mookie Betts, they kept on spending money. And they said, you know what, on top of that, we're going to go get Freddie Freeman. And then guess what? Because we've been smart with our money, we're going to go get Shohei Ohtani. Now, the way he went about his contract is unheard of. And yes, that helps them to an extent. But at the same time, they still kept adding. And now they're doing it again. They signed or traded for and signed Tyler Glasnow. They signed Blake Snell. They go out and get Yoshinobu Yamamoto. Like, they're doing all of these things. And the reason why they're making money on the back end is because they're putting money in the front to put the product on the field so people come and watch it. So again, baseball fans love an attraction. Baseball fans love watching fun ball players, good ball players. They want to watch good baseball. Okay, that's essentially what they want. You can provide that if you spend the cash. So again, I can't sit here and badmouth the Dodgers for what they're doing, because we as Mets fans, we all want the same exact thing, which is where I've talked and I've preached patience on this show, and it's still coming around because you still have David Stearns. This is the start of year 2. People want to throw this guy off the cliff already. And it's just like, guys, this offseason and I know it's dragging and we're caught in the middle of Soto watch and everything, but it just started. There's no reason to kill the guy when he just took you from his standpoint of building. When it was supposed to be a transition year, you went to the NLCS and you pushed these same Dodgers to game 6. So again, just pump the brake. I know it's tough to say pump the brakes to Mets fans, but pump the brakes.
I don't know if you see Christine's comment in there. I don't mean to bring it up.
No, it's okay.
About the about players' contracts and how the fans have to pay prices at the park. That's not how it works.
Mm-hmm.
The contracts do not affect how much we have to pay for at the ballparks. It's the contracts that with like Aramark, with the city, with all that kind of stuff, day-to-day operations. It has nothing to do with the player salary, what the ticket prices are. Ticket prices has to do with what the contracts are in the park and not the contracts of the players.
Right. So everyone thinks, oh my God, you're going to give Juan Soto $700 million. Now my hot dog's going to cost $40. It's like, no, granted, over the years, the price of a hot dog and the price of drink have gone up exorbitantly, but that's not the reason why that you're paying that much for said hot dog or for said drink. Also, Ant Somebody Shay, shout out as always. Remember, the Dodgers had to go through a decade of building up this to spending now. It's not every year they've done this. The last couple of years, but it took a while to get to this point. And it's playing the game. And look, they're smart at playing the game. And playing the game is going with that up and down of not going over the tax 2 times in a row, bringing it back down, being silent one off season to then going big the next, to then bringing it back down to going big again. Like it's a game, and you have to have smart people when it comes to money. You got to have smart people when it comes to someone acquiring talent. You have to be smart when it comes to being on the farm. And look, we as fans, and I've preached this so many times on this show since we started, you have to have the right people in charge. And if you don't, you're never going to get out of your own way. We just started. We essentially just started when it comes to trusting somebody to get things moving. And guess what? He's still going to have to work through a good amount of shit before we get to that point. I still believe that this team is going to spend money in this offseason. Don't worry about that, because they have to, because there's so many holes in the team because they were all 1-year deals. So the guy's going to do work. Don't worry in that sense. But at the same time, I would not be so preconsumed with what the Dodgers are doing. in comparison to what our Mets can potentially do. Shout out, sorry, Keith, real quick. Shout out to the 550 people that are here right now. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. Well, like I said, we cracked 912 subs recently. I'll double check to see where we are right now because I love the fact that we keep on growing. Okay, so if you haven't already, make sure you sub the channel, like the video. There is a poll going on in the YouTube chat as well. If you haven't already, make sure you're voting it. We got about 50, just got 50 votes in. The question asking, if the Mets fail in signing Juan Soto, does that change your opinion of Steve Cohen? We're going to be talking about that a little bit later in the show. We'll double check to see where the votes in total are by the time we get to that topic. But once again, if you haven't, make sure you vote. If the Mets fail in signing Juan Soto, does this change your opinion of Steve Cohen? Shout out to everyone that's in the chat. Jeff Cohen coming saying, no, Ibby, let's badmouth the Mets. Hey, that's what Mets fans do the best. Look, everyone else talks shit about the Mets, but we as Mets fans say no one talks more shit about our team than us. Corey coming in saying the Dodgers World Series championship also paid for a huge portion of Ohtani's contract. The amount of money that they've made this past year is ridiculous. And yeah, they're but again, that's what we as fans want to see our teams do. We want to see them, win, take said money, and then reinvest in said team. So I understand being, a little green and jealous with envy there, but at the same time, I can't badmouth the team because, that's what everybody wants. You're jealous because you want your team to do the same thing, essentially. You were going to say something before, Keith? I'm sorry to cut you off.
No, it's just actually going to agree with everything that you said, that I love our fellow Mets fans, but our fellow Mets fans are crazy.
That's putting it lightly. That's putting it lightly. Like I said, we always try our best on here to be as even keel as we can. Yes, we get bothered with something sometimes. Yes, we know that people who watch the show love when John goes on a good rant. But at the same time, we try to keep things even keel. But if something needs to be called out, we'll call it out. And look, if David Stearns says, I'm not going to that price for Juan Soto, or I'm not going to sign Corbin Burns, or I'm not going to sign any pitcher, and I'm just going to keep on bargain hunting, and we're only going to spend, $50 million in total this offseason, then yes, I will come on here and I will, I'll lay into him because I think that would be improper. But I'm not expecting that. I trust David Stearns and what he's done to this team so far. And I said this last offseason, if people have an issue, you cried for this guy forever. Now he's here and you're gonna bitch and moan about the process. You can't do that. Let the guy work. He did it last year. Let the guy work. Nothing major has happened to this point where you need to be jumping off of the cliff. Shout out to the 575 of you that are here right now. We're going to move topics in a moment. Again, shout out to everyone in the chat as well. Getting to as much things as I can to make sure it plays up to what we're going to be talking about. Armand coming in saying the Mets fan base is a cesspool. Yes, I mean, there are a lot of good people. A lot of good people that you can meet at the QBC. If you have never been there, there's a lot of cool people. I've met some of the people that frequent this chat. My favorite, I see you're in there right now, Patty in NYC. I met Patty twice. Saw Patty for Howie, and I saw Patty for the QBC last year. So hopefully, if she's not too busy, she'll be there again. I can see her once again. And if anyone else wants to join, I'll be saying hello to a lot of people there. But yes, there is the cesspool section of this fan base, but at the same time, there are a lot of good people. And I say this often, and I truly believe it. There are a lot of smart people within this fan base that understand baseball, that know how to talk ball. And I really believe that Mets fans are very, very smart. It's just sad that the loudest microphone, if you will, always goes to the shitty ones, because that's what drives more attention.
Yep. I've been dealing with one of those with the QBC the last couple of days too. So,
believe me, we will not air dirty laundry on that one. But yes, there's always somebody, if you will. But changing course somewhat before we go into the break, it's the free agent landscape, and I know we're going to get into plenty of Juan Soto talk in the second half, and we'll talk Pete Alonso as well. But in terms of the landscape for you, do you think, based off of what we just saw, with Blake Snell getting 5 years, $182 million, which is a little bit higher than what people had originally thought. Looking at what's available, the pitching market's kind of top heavy, but something like this kind of could end up bleeding down to the rest. Do you think that this contract is now going to set the tone for the rest of free agency for pitching to be probably an extra year higher for some, or a couple, a handful of millions extra now on top of it than where you thought it would have been originally?
Yeah, well, once you set a contract like that for pitching, it's definitely going to go up against what the pitcher is actually worth versus what he's done in the past and what he's going to do in the future. So it's going to, after the Snell contract, you're definitely going to have either more years or a higher annual salary, or both. So I expect money to be thrown around.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I think that, it's when I see this, him getting 5 years, now I'm very curious on the Corbin Burnes market. Because a lot of people have him as the top guy, and Armand coming in saying, I see Burnes getting 5 years, 200. That's 40 a year. Look, something like that could potentially happen. And I say that, and I agree with you, Armand, because it wouldn't shock me that owners want to avoid 6, 7, 8 years, even though it could spread money. I still think people are afraid to giving pitchers that many years, which is why I said before, like the Garrett Cole types of deals aren't going to happen anymore. And I know Yamamoto happened last year, but that was an anomaly because not often does a 25-year-old pitcher hit the open market. So that's a little bit different. So I think owners in general are going to shy away from going 6, 7, 8 years. Is it possible that Burnes can get maybe 6? Yeah, of course. I mean, I didn't think that Snell was going to get 5. So now, yeah, you might have to add a year or two on top of things to close a deal to get someone because, like I said, the top-heavy nature of the market might get more money now because if you miss out, there's not much behind it. Now, on the topic of pitching, I'll bring up a former Met, or for now, a former Met, Sean Manaea. What are your thoughts on Manaea in terms of, well, number one, do you want him back? And number two, what do you think his market in terms of contract and money could end up being?
I think he's one of the players from last year that was an unsung hero. He had a lot of heart with the team.
Mm-hmm.
He, like you could tell being on his team meant something to him too. Like during the playoffs, didn't know if they were coming back to Citi Field at all during certain rounds. He walked around the whole ballpark, waved to the fans, high five to fans. So I think that he has the heart that he wants to stay in New York.
Mm-hmm.
I think he has the tenacity and the thick skin to pitch in New York still. And I think that he's a solid pitcher. Now, as of his salary and what he might sign for it, that's one of those things that you don't know what he's going to get. If there's going to be anybody bidding against him, against the Mets for him, you don't know what the other offers are. You don't know if there's going to be player options, team options.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a total crapshoot. With a player like that, he's a star. He's not a superstar, but he's a solid pitcher. So that's one of those things that you actually don't know what he's going to get.
It's interesting because I would love, and me and John have talked about this, I would love to have Sean Manaea back because he fits that mold of player like you just said. He thrived in New York. It didn't seem like the lights were too bright for him. And I'm not going to get on him for the playoffs because he had pitched his ass off so much to that point that he just ran out of gas. And I can't fault the guy for that because he went to an area for the first time in his career that he never went to. And it's not only the amount of innings, it's the amount of weight that those innings carried, which also puts a lot on the body. So I'm not going to rip him for that. So I think he wants to be here. I think he wants to get paid because he has to get, it's a business. You want to be smart. And for the longest time, I had been saying, and I think the Snell deal kind of changes my math a little bit. I had been saying that he was going to get 3 years. I thought people would be, hard stance on that 3 years because of the scare that comes with him because he just threw the most amount of innings he's ever thrown in his career. Now, signing him to a big deal, you're probably wondering, is the arm okay? He switched the way he throws. He emulates Chris Sale. Chris Sale has had an injury filled career. Granted, he just won the Cy Young. Fantastic story for him. But there's been a lot of injuries along the way, even though he's had a fantastic career in general. But that's something you have to worry about when you're signing a guy that's 32, going to be 33 years old. So that's questionable as well. But Jeff Cohen coming in saying, Manaea will get something around what Kikuchi got with the Angels. I believe he got 3 years and $63 million, I think it was. Now, my original idea for Manaea was 3 years, about mid-60s. That's where I was. But I wouldn't be shocked if Boris is able to get him to a point where it's, look, he wants to stay in New York. And I'll call it the Brandon Nimmo effect, where it's like, look, we want to stay in New York, give us the extra year, and it's a done deal. And I think that could look. It comes down to, is David Stearns willing to accept the fact that he's going to sign a guy off of a 1-year deal that gave him everything that he could, and then he's going to say, I'm going to give you 4 years. That's going to be the most interesting thing. I think 3 years he would do it. That 4th year, I'm very curious. But like you said, the language could be interesting. Maybe it could be a 3-year deal with an option. Maybe that's a team option. I'm not sure. Maybe you're going to provide opt-outs again for a player. But I think for him, I think he wants to get that money and be, secure for the next, 3 to 4 years. Carlos Ortiz coming in saying he thinks 4 years, $80 million. Wouldn't shock me. Would not shock me if that's what ends up being the closing offer. And that is something that I think, could that come from the Mets? It could, but I wouldn't be shocked if David Stearns said, hey, thanks, but I'm going to go and find the next Sean Manaea. Like that, if that was his idea, that wouldn't shock me either. What do you think? Do you think that there's a hard stance or a hard line for someone like Stearns when it comes to Manaea?
I think Stearns has a hard stance on everybody.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to start going too far over with salaries. Because you do that, then you start handcuffing. I don't care if you have the richest owner in the league, you're going to end up handcuffing yourself down the road. I think it could be 3 years. Maybe they go between 75 and 80 million over the 3 years, where he's still getting that money.
Mm-hmm.
But you even do like a sliding scale, where it's like, the first year he gets 40, and then it goes to 20, and then it goes to 10 or whatever it is. So that way, as it's going on, he can always say, I made that money first. And then if the Mets want to cut him, it's not that, and he's having a horrible year, it's not that much of a hit to them.
Right. I think I want to say that the Cardinals did something similar to that last year when it came to Sonny Gray. He got $75 million over 3 years with an option for a 4th, I believe. But that first year he only got 10. So depending on how the Mets want to handle the math in general, based off of the other signs that they make. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to finagle this. I think the most interesting thing is going to end up being, will Stearns give him that contract, or will he say, I will find the next? Checking in with the chat real quick. Sorry if I haven't been that active with you guys, but I am seeing things. I'm going to bring things that make sense towards the conversation. Armand thinking that Manaea could get somewhere between 28 and 30 from an AAV. I think it's a little bit on the high end, but it does make sense if they go the route you just said, Keith, where they go, I'll give you 3 years and I'll bump up the average annual value instead of spreading it out. So that definitely is a possibility. Rosie K coming in saying that the Mets need to bring Manaea back. Think that he can get 4 years. Ant coming in saying everyone on my wish list is still available, including Manaea, so I'm good. Hey, a lot of us want Sean back. I loved what he provided. I think that he is a strong sign for this team from a standpoint of, if you can pencil him in as that 3, I think it makes things a lot easier for him, and it doesn't put as much weight on him, which is why it's going to be so interesting to see what other arms that this team can bring in. You want to assume you could put Senga at the top or even at 2, but whoever that other guy is that you bring in, it's really going to matter. And as always, you're going to need depth. So it's more than just getting 2 guys. This team really needs to get like 3 or 4 guys to come in here and take the pressure off some of the others that shouldn't have that much on them to begin with. And yes, I'm talking about Tyler McGill because I can't watch him pitch ever again. But that's just me. And I know Carson is not here right now. So, shout out to you, Carson, and you're forever, hill that you were die on when it comes to Tyler McGill. Christine coming in saying that, Ibby, you are correct. I think Manaea would love to stay in New York, and he was a good fit personality-wise for the team. Yeah, I thought you know what Sean Manaea was, and we'll take it. We'll go into the break on this. I thought that Sean Manaea was the epitome of what Mets fans want to see in a ball player. Shout out to Aunt Rivera, who says this all the time. He says, I want guys that want to be Mets. I want guys that want to be here. I want guys that love the name on the front of their jersey. Yes, they play for the name on the back because they're trying to make their money, but they want to be here. And I felt that guy went out there every fifth day. He took the ball. The second half was incredible for him into the playoffs. He became the ace of this team. He's a guy that wanted to be here. And I think that us as fans, we all gravitated to that because it was like, we finally have a guy that signed here, on a 1 year, but that really, wore his heart on his sleeve, put everything out there, and he busted his ass. And I think when you have players like that, it shows that the Met fan in general is really a simple person when you think about it, because they just want that guy that's going to go out there and is going to put everything on the line. And I think that Sean Manaea was that. I think that's also why a lot of fans want to see him back in the orange and blue moving forward. Shout out to the 672 that are here right now. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We're live every single Wednesday, starting around at or about 5:30, depending on if my partner is powdering his nose. And he is not here right now, but my co-host John Saponaro is out for the week. Matt Ibanez here, a.k.a. Ibby, till Mets do us part, checking in. Guest this week, the media goon himself, representing the QBC, the Queens Baseball Convention, Mr. Keith Blacknick, and we will talk more about the QBC coming out of the break, and then we're going to move into some more fun topics, one that we're ever entrenched in until he actually signs, that being Juan Soto, and we're going to mix in some Pete Alonso talk as well. But we're about to take a 30-second break. Do not go anywhere. This is simply for the ads on the audio side of the podcast. It's a 30-second break. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back. What is up, everyone? Good to have you back again. Matt Ibanez here, a.k.a. Ibby, till Mets do us part, checking in with you live on a Wednesday, as always, right here on YouTube as well as X. 670 of you are rocking with myself and my guest this week, representing the Queens Baseball Convention, the media goon himself, Mr. Keith Blacknick. Shout out to all of you. And, of course, if you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I'm not able to do as much as I normally do when my partner is running everything down. We got about 65 of you on the YouTube side now. Shout out to all of you over there. I would love if that number could keep on climbing, but we only have 33 likes on the video. If you are here on the YouTube side, 60 plus of you are here and you haven't liked the video, like the video, hit that thumbs up. It helps us a lot when it comes to the algorithm, so we can further reach more baseball fans, more Mets fans, to continue the great conversation that we have each and every Wednesday. But before we get into the second half of the show and Juan Soto and all that good stuff, let's hit on the QBC real quick. Keith, we have a couple of weeks away from the event.
1 week.
1 week? That's right, 1 week. I'm losing count of things. We're 1 week away. December the 7th. Can you tell the good people that watch and listen till Mets do us part where they can go to not only buy the tickets, but where can they go, or where are they going if they actually buy a ticket, I should say?
So we're going over to 4 Point Sheridan over in Flushing. It's on Farrington Street. Go to queensbaseballconvention.com. All the info is there. I'll tell you about how to, I think I actually put the directions and everything on there too to get there. If you don't have a car, you can take the 7 to Main Street. It's a 3-minute walk. It's a fun event. It's a nice big ballroom at the hotel. We have the whole second floor of the ballroom, so there's plenty of room for people to walk around, talk to each other. We have vendors there, panels, the signings. Catch is doing the concessions. We got Turk Wendell, Greg Jeffries, Ray Knight, Jose Reyes, SNY with New York, Spring and Baseball Night in New York. So it's going to be fun seeing Saponero with Sal Licata. SNY's bringing Terry Collins with them too.
Mhm.
And also Keith Rad from WOR. They are also, there's also going to be a State of the Mets panel, which we have Ibby, Ant Rivera, Kelly Franco, and Joe DeMeo all a part of. Mark Healy's moderating that. It's always good because it talks about the season past and the season future, going where the Mets stand. And then we also have let's see. And the live Till Mets to Us podcast.
That's right.
Can't
We're doing
forget
live,
about
yeah.
that. So you guys, always here in the chat, come see them in person. And who knows, maybe Ibby will give you an autograph or two.
Yeah, please. I don't know. I'm not giving autographs. Shout out to Patty. Patty in the chat. I remember she got one of the books last year at the event, and she like showed me something. She said to sign it, and I signed it like an idiot. I'm not calling you an idiot, Patty. I'm the idiot because I'm thinking like, why the hell am I signing something? It's ridiculous. But yes, if you guys do show up, I will. I had a great time meeting a lot of you last year, and it's always a fun time just mixing it up with Mets fans and having good conversation. And I'm very excited and thankful for not only doing a live version of the show, but having another opportunity to do something live. It'll only be the 4th time ever that me and John have been in the same place at the same time, and being a part of the State of the Mets panel. When I first found out about the QBC years ago, I had always thought, it'd be really cool to be a part of something like this. If maybe I could work my way up and I could find something. And then sure enough, I found my way up onto that stage last year, which was awesome. Getting a chance to have a conversation with one of my favorite Mets, that being Cliff Floyd. And now this year being able to be up there with people that I really respect, that being Mark Healy as the moderator, being able to meet Kelly Franco. I have all the respect. I know you're not a big DeMeo guy, but I have a lot of respect for Joe. I've been reading Joe's stuff for the longest time since I've been on Twitter. So I respect him and his opinion on things. And of course, my main man, Ant Rivera, who's getting a lot of love. I know someone mentioned that before in the chat. He's getting a lot of shout outs today, but that's my guy. So I'm gonna give love to Ant Rivera and Subway to Shea. So it's gonna be a lot of fun if you're there. Don't be afraid to say hello, obviously, and be prepared to have a good time because we're going to have a great discussion talking all things Mets. And hopefully this time, and we'll use this as a segue to talk about Juan Soto. Last year, we walked into the QBC on a downer, correct? Because that was Jacob deGrom leaving, and that put us in a sour state a little bit. And then, having to talk about that and moving forward and how to process things. Hopefully, we can talk about something on the more positive side, that being Juan Soto potentially being a Met. That'd be kind of cool if things can come to a head right before the winter meetings actually start. But having said all of that, Juan Soto is going to have this entire free agent period in a chokehold until he actually signs somewhere. And the insane thing, and I've been saying this, I'll say it to you now, Keith. The insane thing is in our Mets chat, our Mets content creator chat. It's crazy how every year when stuff like this happens with big free agents, free agency in general, you have the guys throughout, even during like the trade deadline, you have the guys that you trust and that From the Mets side, you can trust Will Salmon. From the national stage, you can trust Jeff Passan. You can trust Mark Feinsand. If you like John Heyman, that's up to you. I have my questions, but either way, there are guys that you can trust when it comes to the business in general or the industry in general. But it's crazy to me how all of these names come out of the woodwork talking about sources. And mind you, these people have followings. Like some of these people have like 20,000 followers, 15,000 followers. I'm like, I don't know everybody, but I'm like, I don't know who is this guy. I never heard, it's got 20,000 followers. Who is this guy? Like, why aren't you putting out more information and becoming something within this space if you have all these sources that can give this type of information? So it's like, who can you trust? Who can you not? It's just wild, all the things that we are hearing. But offers have been made. And I started this one as a joke that Brad put at the start of the show, saying how did Ibby get an invite to Cohen's mansion as well? That obviously coming from the report from John Heyman, speaking on how everyone went to go see Juan Soto out in LA, but Juan Soto and Scott Boras packed up their bags and they went to the Beverly Hills mansion of one Steve Cohen. So look, maybe Alex did that good cooking again and provided a nice meal to Juan and Scott the same way that she did for Yamamoto, but Yamamoto ended up getting what he wanted to stay on the West Coast and he got what he wanted from LA. So that didn't work out. Offers have been submitted. I put a poll in the chat. And once again, we have 69 people on the YouTube side, 38 likes. Make sure you like the video. We have 83 votes so far in the chat when it comes to this poll question. If the Mets fail in signing Juan Soto, does that change your opinion of Steve Cohen? Keith, let me ask you this. When it comes to Steve Cohen's money and all that we wonder of that money and what he can do for this team, when it comes to Juan Soto, I've already said my piece on this show multiple times. But for you, do you believe that there is a limit for Juan Soto?
I do believe that there's a limit. I don't know what that limit is. It's kind of like when you're on eBay and you're going for something. You have that limit in your head, and then you tend to go over it a little bit, and then you might stop like $10 more than what you would have what you originally were thinking. I think there's the limit, and then I think there's the real limit with Soto. I mean, because you don't want to put your team financially in the hole years later if it's too much.
Well, let me ask you this as a follow-up, and I have a Jay. I see your question. I'm going to bring it up in a moment. Do you feel that Cohen would ever really is that part of the pitch where it comes to, because look, you're signing someone to a record-breaking type of contract, or trying to at least, and you're selling them an idea of your franchise and what you're going to do moving forward. I would hope, it's Scott Boras. He knows what he's doing. He's been doing this forever. He's the most successful agent ever. Like, you're asking these questions of, if we sign this contract for $700 million, say, or $701 million, have you, whatever. If we sign this contract, are you going to stay true to putting a product on this field? Or, building around me like you say you're going to do? Because look, for any franchise, I don't care who you are, for any franchise, if you're going to spend that much money on one player, to your point, yes, it can put constraints on you to how much you can do. But this, as we all know, is a passion project for someone like Steve Cohen, because he said as much when it comes to this team. If he simply says, I don't care, I want this guy, maybe the number doesn't exist in terms of how much he's willing to pay, but will that number ever truly affect how this team actually builds? Because he can just say, it doesn't matter, I have the money, I'm going to keep going because that was my pitch to you.
I think because he is a businessman, at some point you have to put a stop sign up.
Especially also, in terms of ROI, you want to return on your investment. Yeah.
Also, with Boras, how many of his players are the Mets looking at?
A handful. I mean, he's got a big part of the market, so a handful of players. Yeah.
Right. So now, if you're doing that and you want your players to get paid the most money, are you gonna go, all right, I'm gonna stop here with Soto? He knows he's gonna get his money. He's gonna also get his money from marketing and from endorsements. Then are you gonna go, hey, you know what? I'll take a little less for Pete Alonso. We know he didn't do a great job last year. We'll we'll work it where we'll sign him for 2 years and have a player option for 3, 4, or whatever it is, or sign him for 3 years. We'll put a player option for year 4 or 5. Now do you do it with the pitchers and stuff? So with Boris, he can get a nice little payday from all these players. So do you make all the money off of Soto and not make any more money off his other players and build around Soto? It's a whole thing where he can have the stranglehold on the Mets with his players too.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah. I look at it like that, where it's one of those things where Soto's a young player. You're going to spend money on him towards the end. He might decline. He might not. We don't know how like medical technology is these days. Everybody's look at all these wrestlers that are 50 years old still doing.
They look fantastic. Yeah. Doing incredible things.
And all those guys doing flips and everything. It's crazy. So you don't know what wear and tear on the body is going to be in 10 years or whatever. So I think there's a whole bunch of different things that'll go into that final stop sign of how much you're actually going to pay Soto.
Let me ask you, because I have my number that I had in my head as to what I think could be the winning bid. What do you think? I'll ask you 2 questions. What do you think he ultimately would sign for? And what is your number?
For me, anything between 650 and 700.
Okay.
Anywhere between that's good for him. I mean, even if it's 710, just because he wants 10 extra million. All right. Yeah. That's like throwing an extra dime into a pot for Cohen. Yeah. But for me, it would be like anywhere between 650 to 700, depending on the years too.
Yeah, I had mine at I think I had a graphic I was going to use last week that we never got to, so I'm going to use this as a time to use it. I think I had it as right here. It was 14 years, 672 million, which came out to about 48 AAV, which tops Ohtani in terms of AAV, and I'm assuming minimal deferrals to jack up the overall present day value, because I really believe that Scott Boras is pissed off that he doesn't have the top rated player, if you will, in terms of all of baseball when it comes to contract. I think that's the biggest thing that he's shooting for. Maybe he realizes that he won't get the 700 plus, and if he has to settle for underneath that, he wants to make sure that it is still number one in terms of present day value and getting his client as much money as possible. And outside of the Snell deal, obviously yesterday, someone posted a list, a lot of players, big name players that Scott Boras has taken care of over the last decade plus, they don't take deferrals. There's not a lot of deferrals in those contracts. And another thing, there's not a lot of opt-outs either. So when he locks in, he wants to lock in and make sure this is what my guy is getting. He's staying here. You're not going to move him around. The interesting thing from the Soto camp with Boras that might be interesting in relation to Ohtani is Ohtani has the opt-out clause in that 10-year contract that says if you sell the team, I can opt out. Now, maybe they'll try to get cute and say, if you're not, spending X amount of money in providing a team after, year 4, I can opt out and I can leave. Like maybe they're going to do something along those lines because he wants to make sure that they are trying to build around him. But like you said, it's not the easiest thing to do because he's not going to go the route that Ohtani went, where he deferred $680 million of the $700 million. Like that's not going to happen. So you're putting more strain on the build from the jump and throughout your career. So, that part's going to be very interesting, but I have a hard time seeing the Mets lose, but we'll get more into that in a minute. I want to make sure I get to these comments with Jay, who I think is the first time commenter. So welcome, Jay. Soto is not worth $700 million. We need 7 players, not 1. Alonso also, Walker as a DH, an alternate at first, Santander, 3 starting pitchers, trade for Rooker, and the speedy leadoff guy from the A's. Look, I would love to have Brett Rooker. If you're also talking about, I don't know if you're talking about Butler or maybe you're an Esteury Ruiz fan. I'm not sure who you're alluding to there, Jay, but that's asking for a lot. And look, I know people have their opinions on spending that much money on one player, but I have been saying, and I will stay steadfast on this, you want Juan Soto. Like, you want Juan Soto on your team. And like, I worded this question in the chat like this for a reason. If the Mets fail in signing Juan Soto, does that change your opinion of Steve Cohen? 97 votes so far. If you haven't voted so far, make sure that you do, because I want to see this before by the time we end. 78 people are here so far. 41 likes on the video. Make sure you like the video as well. Till Mets do us part here every Wednesday. 79% say no, that would not change your opinion of Steve Cohen, while 21% say yes, it would. I worded it like that for a reason. And my reasoning was, if Steve Cohen can't land Juan Soto, one could say, well, what's the point of Steve Cohen? And I say it like that only because this is the guy. And people are like, well, you had Ohtani last year. Wasn't that the guy? Or you could have got Judge. Like, no. He was playing nice when it came to Judge. So he's a Yankee. He's not coming here. So I'm not going to bother doing that, which is like, have your guy, tip your cap. Ohtani was never going to come here. I don't care what anybody says. He wanted the money from the Dodgers. The Dodgers had the money. They were going to get him. That was always the plan. So to say, oh, he failed because he didn't sign Ohtani, no, that is not the case. The interesting thing here is going to be this. These offers that are coming in. I wholeheartedly believe that Steve Cohen is going to give the contract that this guy wants to have. The question is, will someone have the balls to match it? Now, the interesting thing is going to be what I talked about last week, and that was the Yamamoto effect on Cohen. I said Cohen had to go $50 million more, or $50 million plus, over what the Dodgers would offer. The Dodgers said for the longest time, the rumors were they weren't going to top 275. The Mets come in and offer 325. Here, we want you. Here is the money. We are putting a lot more on the table here. The Dodgers then said, screw it, we match. He doesn't allow the Mets to go higher because he got the money that he wanted from the place he wanted to go. I do not believe that Scott Boras client is going to, this client is going to leave money on the table. People make it seem as though, oh, it's only $3 million a year. That's not a big deal. It's like, well, when you do the overall math, I still think it's going to be very hard for someone to say they're leaving $50 million on the table. I think if it was a lot closer, it's a different story. But this is the same guy at 23 years old that turned down $440-something million, and he has a chance to he won't, but I'm just saying, like, almost double that money. I mean, if you factor in deferrals and what the actual cost of it, yeah, he will double that contract with this one. So if the Mets offer the most money and he leaves money on the table, which I don't think he will, but if he does on the off chance, you can't hate Steve Cohen and be upset that he didn't land it because he offered the most money. I think for fans, the dagger to the heart would be if the Mets don't offer the top flight money, the number one contract. Like, that's where I think Mets fans would truly lose that relationship that they've grown with the idea of Steve Cohen.
Yeah, the whole Uncle Stevie and not the real man, but the ideal of Uncle Stevie having his wallet open and that he can't land a free agent even with his wallet open will give a little bit of a kick in the gut to Mets fans, where they'll lose it a little bit unless Stearns is able to put together a superstar team without Soto, and they end up winning a World Series. That's the only thing that would everybody be like, all right, we get it. You know, we didn't have Soto, but we got a World Series now because we didn't have Soto. I think people will be all right with that. But
yeah,
until the Mets win a World Series, with or without Soto, you're always going to have, hey, Cohen promised us a World Series between 3 and 5 years. What happened to that?
Right. I think, look, I never really wanted to kill him for that, but just in general, like, if this guy is about money and he wants to go somewhere because he wants to be paid what he is worth, and I just have a very hard time seeing Steve Cohen not going to that route because let's be honest here. He's never really had, and we could talk about the Verlanders and the Scherzers because that was unheard of because it was different and kind of kickstarted this higher AAV, less years type of thing. But he's never really had the chance yet for that big contract because when you look back on it now, the Lindor contract is almost like a bargain at this point in comparison to a lot of guys that signed after him and what they provide. Like I think people would rather have Francisco Lindor on the deal that he got versus, let's say, Trey Turner. People have their ideas of, Corey Seager and things like that. I think Corey Seager's a damn good player, but he always gets banged up too. But just that ends up being borderline bargain. So he really hasn't had that opportunity to say, I'm Steve Cohen. This is my guy. And this is, in my opinion, the guy. And I'm gonna parlay this into the question I really wanted to ask you, which is a lot of the things that are surrounding Citi Field or what they're planning on surrounding Citi Field, whether it's Metropolitan Park and all the ideas and the potential casino and all those things. I know you have strong feelings about all of it. If those things are to get off of the ground and actually happen, do you think that the idea of a player like Juan Soto and the people that he can attract to said games, which then brings more people to said area, do you think that the idea, and we just talk about like return on investment and things like that, do you think that signing a player like that is something he may think of when it comes to an idea on a grander scale, or do you think it's two separate things?
It's two separate things. Cohen's idea of the casino and the retail shops and the restaurants over at public parkland is him trying to make money for himself. It has nothing to do with signing a player.
Okay.
The Wilpons are across the street building the NYFC soccer stadium. They're building co-ops. There are affordable housing, schools, retail shops, a park with the open space. So they're basically doing all that stuff across the street, except for a casino. Cohen keeps pushing this whole agenda that there's nothing going to be around Citi Field for the next few years unless he gets the casino and he builds Metropolitan Park. But everybody keeps getting confused that 126th Street, right across the street, there's going to be a whole bunch of stuff going on. So if he does land Soto, it's going to help them first and not the Mets. I think that Cohen has some kind of idea of like what he's going to make off the casino, working with Hard Rock and everything else to beautify the park and have things to do with secondary. It has nothing really to do with that. And even you can sign whatever player. The players aren't going to matter in the wintertime when the casino's there. Right. And what Ibby is saying about me with strong feelings, I don't believe that there should be a casino across the street from a school that's going to be on 126th Street, and they shouldn't be using New York City Parkland for it. So that's my whole thing. Do I think the neighborhood needs to be renovated and a better landing spot for everybody when they get to the game? Yeah, absolutely. But I'm not a fan of what Cohen is doing with what he wants to do with the area. And there's other things to do. All right, if he wants to beautify it, no casino. You want to put shops, you want to put restaurants, fine. Don't need a casino. You want to put a live music venue in there for the winter time? I'm agree with that. But why do you need a casino? Yeah. And like you asked me, I know I went away from the topic a little bit, but no matter whatever player that they sign has nothing to do with what it's going to come into a casino or hotels or anything over there, because you have 6 months that there's no games going on. The only thing that's going to be over there is, maybe a random football game from a college or, random hockey game or whatever. But no matter who they sign, it has nothing to do with what the area is going to become.
Yeah, and I think like for me as a fan, you know more because you're more well equipped to understand the surrounding area and things like that. For me, like when the thing that always bothered me when it came to the surrounding area of Citi was it's like it's such a beautiful place. I love going there, and just the fact that it's just that always bothered me because you can never really, especially now where it's like, you go to a game and you're done in 2 hours potentially. So it takes me a while to trek out there and go for 2 hours. Like if there was other things within the area, maybe I would stick around more. Maybe I would have dinner there. Maybe I would like to go to a place that has an actual bar that you can hang out with friends and have a good time. Like that was always my stance. Like when you go to places like Fenway, like Wrigley, like they have these surrounding areas that really encapsulate baseball and being with friends and just having a good time. And that's what I've always wanted. Like that's all I need. I'm not a big gambler, so I'm sure it's all about money and trying to create something for, on the back end for him when it comes to a casino and the Hard Rock and everything. But for me as a fan, I just wanted something that was, better on the eyes and, an opportunity to potentially do something.
You're going to have that across the street.
Yeah.
The Wilpons might have been horrible at running a baseball team, but they're great with their real estate.
Mm-hmm.
People don't realize that you might be in a Sterling Equities building right now, and you don't realize how much stuff they actually have around the city. I think the area across the street is going to be very, very well done. And a lot of people confuse that that's where they think the casino is going to go and not where Shea Stadium was standing.
Right.
And that's why one of the things I keep pushing about that, like even Washington has a little area where they have shipping containers outside, and they made like a little area to hang out there.
Yeah.
And why couldn't the Mets have ever done that in one of the parking lots?
Yeah.
I personally, like I said, I have no ill will to the Cohens or anything like that with what they're doing. I'm not a fan of a casino right there.
Yeah. So everything else you're kind of on par with the idea like the casino is the backbreaker.
Yeah, it's a backbreaker because if he really wants to make it a more beautiful area, you don't need that. You want to build a park, you want to build a parking deck for the fans coming in. The thing that's going to happen is all tailgating is going to go away.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, you'll have the MTA lot, but I don't know. He might want to try to take that over too.
Right.
And then over with the marina lot, they want to put a greenway over there. So is that more parking that's going to disappear? And then when you're trying to leave the game, it's going to take 2 or 3 hours to leave the game.
It's always a pain in the ass getting out of there. A shout out to the 747 of you that are rocking with myself and the Media Goon, Keith Blacknick, representing the QBC, the Queens Baseball Convention. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. We have 66 people watching on the YouTube side, 50 likes so far, so we're 16 behind. If you haven't already, make sure you vote on the poll in the chat. We got 108 votes right now. Still a commanding lead for no at 77% versus 23% yes. If the Mets fail in signing Juan Soto, does that change your opinion of Steve Cohen? Looking at some of the things I have started off, I'm sorry that I haven't been that active with the chat, but I am seeing all the things that you are posting. Johnny Boy coming in saying that $660 million offer is insane, but I have to say this is the fact that the Mets are always in the convo to get a big name. It's awesome to see. Yeah, you want to be involved with someone like Juan Soto. I mean, when you say Juan Soto is available, to our discussion before about no such thing as a small market team, every single team in baseball should be submitting offers to Juan Soto because he is that damn good at the sport and is a building block and opens up your window for a championship for at least the next 10 years. So everyone and anyone should want him.
Rosie, according to Wardy New York Mets, Mets signed left-handed pitcher Genesis Cabrera.
Genesis Cabrera coming from Toronto.
Mm-hmm.
I did see a video that fellow Met content creator Keith over at Shea & Sons did post a video of Juan Soto taking Mr. Cabrera about 450 to right field, which was very funny. Another reason why I want to sign Soto. But Rosie K coming in also saying that there's a story in The Score saying that the Yankees raised their offer. No numbers, though. I think a lot of that's going to be coming out. You've heard things from John Heyman as well, who I believe is just a puppet for Scott Boras. And I felt that way for a long time. That the Red Sox have upped their offers as well. I think this is all chatter and things being put into the media to try and squeeze more money in certain areas based off of where he wants to go. I don't think he's leaving New York. I don't. I think he's staying. We'll see which team it ends up being. But I really feel that if Steve Cohen wants to squeeze, squeeze the neck of Hal a la Thanos to Loki, I think if he wants to do that, he can. And I think this is the moment that he has to do it, because I think this really is a changing of the guard moment for the Mets. And I think if they don't land this player, specifically when it comes to money offered, I feel that it's, I don't want to say it's a black eye, but it's definitely, as Douglas Barnes said in the chat before, and what I echo, it's like, if you have Steve Cohen and you can't land this player, especially if it came down to money, what is the point of him? You can't do anything if you offer the most and he ends up leaving money on the table. There's nothing you can do in that instance. Shout out to everyone that's in the chat so far. Shout out to the 761 of you that are here. John Rossi coming. I haven't seen you in a while, brother. Good to see you. Mr. Jedi Met. Good to see you. It's been a minute. So it's good to see you in the chat, my friend. Also echoing what some others have said, there's so many holes in this team. Soto isn't enough. I agree. Soto is not enough, but I also don't think that if they sign Juan Soto, that would be the end of their spending. I think that they would add a lot more. And shout out to Peter Cullen, who was in the chat before, saying how he thinks it should be Soto, Alonso, Burns should be the free agent signings, Castillo via trade, and one more back end starter. And we're good, but I'm sure the Mets won't be done for 2025. Look, I'm a big advocate of trading or trying to figure out a way to trade for Luis Castillo. He's an innings eater. He's a guy that likes the spotlight. I would love to get him away from Seattle. I don't know what the cost would be, but he has an affordable contract. He's 4 years, $100 million. He averages about 170 plus innings pitched a year, and he has been doing that since he really came up with the Reds. So I would love to have him. Do they have what it takes to land him? I don't know, but that is, I like where your head's at in trying to, circumvent free agency in a way. If you don't want to sign a Corbin Burns, or if you don't want to sign a Max Fried, I think going the trade route is going to be something that David Stearns is heavily involved in. Juan coming in saying, "Hey, B, thanks for keeping the site growing," and all to all folks in the chat. Hey, thank you, Juan. I appreciate it. I do what I can along with John to keep things rolling and to keep this entire thing growing. And Jeff, I had to start from before, saying that I'm a very intimidating person to say hello to. Jeff, I am not, dude. I am not an intimidating person at all. I'm probably just as scared of you as you are of me. I am not intimidating. Please, if you see me, just be like, hey. And Jeff, I still got your card that you gave me too from last year, your business card. I still have it. No, I am not intimidating at all. Please, if you see me, say hello. I will say hello back, and we can talk Mets. We can talk life. We can talk whatever you want to talk about. And we'll have, like I said, we'll have a good time. But no, I am far from intimidating. Before we get out of here, and we'll get out of here shortly. And I can't say enough how much I appreciate your time, Keith, and as well as the 767 that are here with us right now. Like and subscribe, like the video, sub the channel. Till Mets do us part every single Wednesday, 5:30 p.m. Talking Mets baseball all year long, off season, in season, what have you. Free agency is always a fun time, and it's great for the channel because we're always growing, because people are thirsty for rumors and insight and overall thoughts, because we all love playing GM. That being said, if anyone frequents our chat, especially when the media goon himself is here, he has his feelings about Pete Alonso. Mr. Cullen in our chat before just said he would love to have Pete Alonso back. The man that I have right here, Mr. Alonso. He had an up and down season. He woke up when we needed him the most in Milwaukee. Does some damage against the Phils as well. He's a free agent. He's a Scott Boras client. He's 30 years old, 31 years old going to be. He's a first baseman. His numbers have been trending a bit down, but we know what he is as a ball player. I throw this to you, Mr. Blacknick. Pete Alonso is out there. This team still needs power in its lineup. If you had the book, Are you signing Pete Alonso?
I'd sign him, but I wouldn't sign him for the money he wants.
Now, what amount of money do you think he wants?
Well, what was the deal that he turned down?
He turned down, I think it was said improperly. He turned down a contract of $157 million for 7 years. But I think the thing that gets lost on people was that was built in to what he was about to have. So whatever that number was, so instead of 157, take off a year and take off whatever the arbitration number was of 20 something million. So really, it's probably what I've been saying he would probably end up getting in this market, which is around 130 something million dollars. That's where I've been. I was hard stance on like 125, 120, 125, but if they wanted to throw a couple more on there to try to lock him up to get him to stay, I wouldn't be shocked. But I have a hard time seeing the market giving him that much more. But let's say it was for $135 million over 5 years. What would you say?
I'd be more 125 for 5 years with him, and maybe
Okay.
add on a player option, a team option at the end, where he might be end up being the DH, because he's definitely trending down.
Yes.
And you still want a pop in the bat, and if he's not as a DH, it's not gonna hurt the team as much, on the field and in the lineup. So you'll know what you have. So
Yeah.
I know I'm very anti-Alonso all the time, but I also know a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. But I also think that he's not the player that he thinks he is. He's not the player a lot of people think he is, but I think he's worth about 125 for 5 years.
I really think that, and I've been saying this, and it's a detriment to what the team has failed to do over his time period here, because we have to assume that he could potentially be done here. But his time frame while here, it's sad that he was never properly surrounded with talent, because I've been saying that he is a certain type of hitter. And I think that if you just allowed him to be that hitter, he would be a lot more successful, and people wouldn't, I don't know if care is the word, but I don't think people would be as loud, if you will, when it comes to his slumps or his average or things of that nature. He's a power hitting first baseman that provides you, let's assume moving forward, 30 to 35 homers a year. If it's going to be on the lower end now, if he's not going to be a 40 plus homer hitter, let's just assume we'll say 35. It's a 35 home run hitter. Like, he's going to go up there. His job is to hit home runs. That's what he does. So if you properly surround him with other talent, and if he's a part of the cog of, let's say, a lineup that, let's think, pie in the sky here. Let's say Francisco Lindor, Juan Soto, Mark Vientos, Pete Alonso, Brandon Nimmo, Francisco Alvarez. Like, if that's your top six, but yeah, I think that takes pressure off of him. That allows him to be the player that he's supposed to be. And it shifts. Granted, I know people assume that Pete is a Met and he's like a huge focal point. But I do think that things have changed, specifically because of the overall growth over the last handful of years for Francisco Lindor. And if you sign a Juan Soto, let's say, on the off chance that it does happen, that's going to really take that limelight away from Pete. Do you think that this team has, I'll word it this way, do you think this team has almost outgrown the Pete act, if you will?
I think they don't. If they sign Soto and with the other players that they have on the team, he will be like a loss, but won't be a major loss.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it would be a great player to have still, yes, but I'm sure you can replace him. Might not with the home runs, but he might not have the same, 20, 25, 30 with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
But I think you can replace him as long as you have like a Soto, Lindor, Alvarez, Vientos. Mauricio might be coming back. We don't know what he's going to end up playing if he's healthy and he can hit like he was hitting. So there's stuff within the team. There's players in free agency. And I think that you might be losing a little bit of power, but I think you can replace it too.
It's it, and that's the whole thing. Like, I know people get so attached, and this is why I want to talk to you about it. Like, I know Mets fans get so attached to the homegrown player, and a thing that I bring up a lot too is the legacy factor. And I know that John is big on keeping Pete because sometimes, and this is I'm gonna use John's words here, because it was his point, and it's sometimes you keep a guy because it's the right thing to do in terms of said legacy and the home runs and breaking records and things like that. Plus, when you have an owner that's willing to spend money, it's not going to be that detrimental to your overall build. That's the main part that John was putting out there, but also not wanting to put a lot on Vientos and just thinking it's so simple to just shift him to first base and think that what he provided this year is what it's always going to be moving forward, because you don't know. We can be very high and excited about Mark Vientos, and I am, as many Mets fans are, but we can't assume because, look, things happen, guys fall off. You never know, and that's just being truthful. So you don't want to put all that unneeded pressure on a player like that if you're just like, okay, we're going to let Pete walk, and you're going to go to first, and now you're going to be the guy that's going to hit 35 to 40 homers a year for the next half decade, and you're going to be that main cog in the middle of the lineup. Like, some guys might be able to handle that, some might not, and that's something that maybe you don't want to put on the plate of a player that is growing into a role. And yes, I'm well aware that he just crushed it during the craziest of times in the playoffs, which shows the mettle that he has as a player. I get that wholeheartedly. But again, you have to you put yourself in a precarious position if you just assume things. And I'm pretty sure that David Stearns knows what he's doing. So if he says, thanks, Pete, but this is goodbye, like, I'm gonna trust the guy because I have to. Like, this is the guy that I've been waiting for to run my team. And he's got the money behind him. But if he chooses and he says, look, I'm going to let Pete go, and I'm going to move Vientos to first, and I'm going to trust that Willie Adames can play third base, and I'm going to put him at third base. Like, I'm like, similar players. I think Pete's better. Maybe they think that over the long haul, Adames would be better in the long run. Maybe. But if you're asking me right now, I think I would still choose Pete. So, David Stearns knows more than me, knows more than you, knows more than everyone in this chat. Everyone's still going to have their voices heard when it comes to moves that are made, for sure. But I'm very curious on the Pete market as a whole, because I wanted to bring up someone's comment real quick. Henry coming in saying that I think some team will offer more than that, probably more than what we said about the 130, 135. If they do, honestly, I would be shocked because I don't feel that people want to pay first baseman. And Vlad next year is a different story because he's going to be 26. It's a different story in total. And I don't think his number is going to be as crazy as people might think it is because of his size, because he plays first base. I just don't think that teams with all the analytics want to put that much money at first base. And look, another one that I had queued up for a segment last week that we never were able to get into was Pete Alonso as a potential sign. And I had it at, 5 years. Hold on, let me take this down so we can actually see it. Have it at 5 years and 135 million, which came to about 27 a year. That was my max that I was willing to go to, because when you look at first baseman's contracts, that puts him at third with Goldschmidt gone now. It would put him behind Freeman. It would put him behind Bryce Harper, who I can include there now because even though he signed that contract as an outfielder, Harper's one, Freeman's two, Goldschmidt's gone now off of that tiering because he's done with St. Louis, and then you would plug in Matt Olson, who's at 22. So Pete would slot in front there. But one could argue that he's not better than Matt Olson because Olson plays defense. So if you do that, it's because you want to keep the guy. And I think that's the number I'd be like, that's my max on where I would go. But I'm telling you, Henry, I think that a lot of teams are going to have a hard time giving this guy a huge contract. Like, I don't think he's getting $175 million. He's not getting $180 million. He's not getting $200 million. Like, it's not going to happen. And if someone does it, God bless, man. God bless. I'm going to miss you. It was fun. But I think that you can spend that type of money on a better player at that point. I don't think he's going to. And me and John have differed on that for a while. I think he was in like the 170s the last time we spoke on it. And I was just like, I'm in the 120s, man. And that's a big gap. If he's in the 170s, I'm in the 120s. It's $50 million. That's a huge difference in terms of opinion. So, just checking into the chat right here. M Easy coming in from over on Mets Weekly. M Easy, I would sign Pete for 5 years. I know he's going to get 6 from somebody. Look, that's it. Look, crazy things happen. People get desperate in terms of wanting to have offense to show their fan base we're going to do something. Does he fit for some teams? Yeah. Does he fit the Mets? Yes. Does he fit the Nationals? Yes, he does. Does he fit Houston? Yes, he does. Does he fit the Yankees? Yes, he does. I have a hard time seeing people dump a huge contract at the feet of a guy that's, entering his 30s, or he's in his 30s, and he's kind of been trending down when you look across all the peripheral numbers over the last handful of years. Not a shot at Pete. I'm just talking, I'm talking facts here. So Stanley coming in saying re-sign Alonso, but don't overpay. Simple enough. Armand saying if Pete was re-signed, that could put Ryan Clifford in a trade package for a starting pitcher. Sure, definitely. And you also have to think about, I'll ask you this, Keith. Do you think that in the long run, if you sign someone like Juan Soto, do you think that the ultimate move would be putting him at first base?
I mean, you could put him at first, but if anything, I would see him probably be slotted as a DH.
Okay.
Maybe platoon at first, then DH.
Yeah, I think a lot of people like the comp that I've used before is Harper because of the injury going from right field to first, Miguel Cabrera going from third base to first base. Look, not everyone can do it. He's an athlete. He's not the greatest of outfielders, even though for some reason he's a finalist when it comes to being a Gold Glove, even though he's not a Gold Glover. But when you sign this guy, I would say, and this is why I put Pete at a 5-year deal. It's because I think if you sign Juan Soto and your idea is to at some point move him to first base or try that project, I think you're going to do that once he enters his 30s. You got 4 or 5 years now before you have to do that, which is why I would say you sign Pete Alonso for 4 to 5 years, and then you go from there. So that's kind of where my thought process is with that one. Rosie K coming in saying, isn't Alonso looking for 180? If he is, I say good luck in finding it. I don't know who's going to give it to him. Now, granted, I was just humbled with Blake Snell getting 182, but pitching is of a premium and it's not the first base position, so it's a little bit different. So not really sure on that one. I missed this one from before, but I want to make sure I brought it up for Christine, who's been active in the chat today, talking about, in my opinion, I think this will be the all theater if it gets down to just the Yankees and the Mets bidding on Soto. Cohen is a shrewd businessman. He knows Aaron Judge is all for the Yanks, and he may not pull the trigger. Yeah, like he knew at that point, going back to Soto for a second, he knew that he wanted to be a Yankee. And he says, I'm not going to step in. I'm not going to up the price. I'm not going to do all this. So, I have my opinions on how I think he puts on a lot of things for show. I think he's about the bottom line. And I know I shouldn't take quotes and just run with it, but I really do not believe that he is going to pay the huge contract that he's going to have to keep this man. I think he's banking on Soto wanting to stay and taking less. And I just don't think that that's what's going to happen, because I think in general, moving forward over the next 5 years, over the next 10 years, I'm not a homer. Like, that's not what I'm doing. I'm not a homer. I truly believe that the Mets are better equipped over the next 5 to 10 years in terms of prospects and in terms of money to surround Juan Soto with a better chance of winning as opposed to the Yankees. That's me. That's baseball talk. That's not me being a homer. That's the truth that some people just choose not to hear. Shout out to the 800 people that are rocking with us right now. The last 3 weeks have been awesome. The last 3 weeks, we've had 1,152 people. 997 people. Now we're at 800 people. I love every minute of it. I love all of you. Thank you so much for that. Keith, before we get out of here, before we stop all the fun, we got to talk about the QBC one more time because we have 800 people here. December the 7th. Who are some of the names that we're going to see at the QBC?
We're going to see Turk Wendell. Awesome person. I hung out with him like a couple months ago at a fundraiser.
Two-time guest Till Mets Do Us Part. If you haven't, check them back. They're
John
great
Saponaro.
episode.
Yeah, John Saponaro is the host for that. So, you're going to get some great stories out of Turk. Roger Clark has Ray Knight. So, you can Ray, Roger, once he was offered Ray, he went right into figuring out what he wants to ask him. He was so happy. He's like, it's one of my favorite all-time Mets. So again, you're going to get a great panel. Greg Jeffries. When was the last time you saw Greg Jeffries around?
I couldn't even tell you. I really couldn't.
We try to bring former Mets that you might have had like high hopes for. He was your guy. And when Jeffries was around when I was a kid, he was like going to be my guy. Mm-hmm. So we brought him in. My buddy Captain Joe Shoes, who's a independent pro wrestler. He's got the captain's wheel there with the hosting of that duty.
Way to turn a phrase. Good one.
Thank you. Lori Rubinson's got Jose Reyes. She's super professional. She knows how to. I love Lori. To get. Yeah. I can't talk enough about Lori. She gets the best out of every player she's ever interviewed for us. And then let's see, Turk, Jeffries, Ray Knight, Baseball Night New York is going to be there with Sal Licata, Keith Rad, also Terry Collins. Terry was at the QBC last year. He just wandered around. He loved hanging out at the QBC. So I think
no lie, talking with Terry last year, and Lori had his panel last year, I believe, right? And that was fantastic. Just hearing the stories and everything, like you said, she brings everything out. But Terry was, like you said, just wandering around. He talked with me and John, and we ended up getting him on the show shortly after. But he talked to us, and we were just, like legit. Like he brought us into 2015 like it was nothing, talking about sitting in the office, talking about what would happen with Cespedes, the potential trades, and Sandy, and all that stuff. Like he brought us in that room. Next thing you know, we're talking to the guy for 40 minutes. 40 minutes. It felt like 5 minutes. So Terry is incredible. We had him on the show. He was a great interview, but just all in all, a person that if you get the chance, if you're at the QBC, if you're at the Queens Baseball Convention and you see Terry around, don't be afraid to say hello. The guy will talk your ear off and you will have a great conversation.
Yeah, like I said, he's coming with Baseball Night New York. He's not signing. He's not doing his own panel. He did that last year. Mm-hmm. Then, of course, we got you guys. Mm-hmm. We have State of the Mets. You're doing double duty. John's doing double duty. Mm-hmm. And it's just going to be a fun event. Like you can connect with baseball fans, Mets fans that you maybe wouldn't connect with at the ballpark. And I know a lot of people. I saw in the chat somebody's coming from Florida, somebody's coming from Ohio. We've had people come from people come from Vermont, from Virginia. It's not just like New York fans here. So it's a fun event. If I wasn't running it, I'd want to go to it. Yeah. We have VIP tickets left. They're the orange VIPs. Check those out. There's 6 of them left. It's the best bang for your buck. You get inscriptions from the players. You get autograph tickets from the players. So a fast pass. You get your own seat. You don't have to worry about trying to find a seat. Within the first 3 rows of the panel. The one bone of contention people have had is that there's no regular GA ticket to come in. Mm-hmm. We have a GA ticket that we're giving you a free Turk Wendell autograph ticket. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, so it's a $75 ticket, which you would have had to pay anyway, and we're giving you a free autograph with it.
Yeah.
So we're trying. That's what we said. We're always for the fans. We're fans. We want to do the right thing for our fellow fans, and that's why we do this.
And like I said that Keith's the one, putting a face on things, and he's the guy behind the curtain. But just for everyone, just so they understand, like there's a lot of people that are putting in hard work, that are volunteering, and they're always with a smile on their face. They're there for everyone that bought that ticket. They want to make sure that you have a good time. And like we said before, the Mets are going to run their thing, and I'm sure it'll be a good time on their end, but it's a lot more higher scale, meaning more for the money. You're paying a lot more. This is, like Keith said before, it's intimate. It's meant to really put you as the focus, not so much everything else. Like, you're the fan, you're the one taking everything in. And I can't say enough good things. I'm so thankful to you, Keith, for allowing me to be a part of it. When it came to the Howie Rose luncheon, when it came to the QBC last year, and I look forward to this year. For everyone that is in the chat, if you plan on going or you're thinking about it, you want to check things out, head on over to the Queens Baseball Convention website and, think about it. If you're in the area, head on down. I'm telling you, you want to come for a couple of hours, you want to spend the entire time. Everything is spaced out. There's a schedule that allows you when certain things are going to be going on. If you want to plan your day around that, you can do that. I'm telling you, it's a good time. It's good eats. It's good drinks. It's great merch. There's all kinds of things. And again, it's about connecting with fellow Mets fans. And that's what this is all about. We love this community. We love talking with everyone. What do you got, Keith? Go ahead.
Well, like J Mac Customs, he's been a vendor at the QBC. He started last year, and all of a sudden he exploded with the OMG. So you don't know who you're going to run into now that might be exploding next season.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many cool vendors and a lot of cool knickknacks, and like I said, bobbleheads. I got I always wanted to get the home run apple bobblehead. I got that last year. It's sitting on my desk right here. I got a Carlos Beltran bobblehead as well. Very cool stuff. So if you're into things like that, there's all kinds of stuff like that. So no matter what, you're going to be walking out of there happy with the amount that you spent. You're going to get that bang for your buck. And like I said, you'll meet some cool people along the way. Is there anything else you want to put out there, Keith, before we get out of here?
All right, I'm just going to do a quick spiel.
Go ahead.
All right, so I also have a partner named Dan. I always do all the FaceTime kind of stuff where I've become the face of it. I hate being the face of it, but I do it. Dan is a backbone of mine. He does all the stuff behind the scenes that with the flights and the players and all that kind of stuff. I do all the production stuff. So I want to also make sure people acknowledge him too. I want to acknowledge all the volunteers that help. They're all my friends, all my family, all the people that are part of this. They're not getting paid. The hosts aren't getting paid. The players are getting paid, but everybody else is doing it because they love the Mets. We bring in the former players in. We pay for their flights. We pay for their rooms. We pay for the transportation. We have to pay for all this stuff, and that's why we are even charging for what we do. And if I could do it for free, I would do it for free, but we can't. So I want to just thank everybody that supported us for the last 10 years as fans. I want to thank everybody that's helped us out over the last 10 years. I want to thank everybody that's been a part of the QBC, that's become the QBC family. People I wouldn't have been friends with, otherwise. I might have met them through the 7 line, but there are also people that have come to the QBC that I've become like text buddies with now. So it's a community that's grown together. We're gonna have for the first time in years, we're having QBC merch. We have a QBC patch, some pins, koozies. We're gonna have posters that you can buy that you can get signed. So if you don't have anything to get signed and you want something to get signed, we're gonna have stuff there. We're gonna have blank baseballs that you can get signed. And then I'm just going to finish it up with this. It's queensbaseballconvention.com. You can get all the information there. You get your tickets from there. I'm going to update about where parking is. We have valet parking at the hotel, but there's a couple of parking garages around the hotel too that you can go and park there, so you don't have to valet. Follow us on X at QB Convention, at Media Goon, on Instagram, same thing. And then also I have the blog, themediagoon.com, which is crazy. I'm getting close to like 600,000 views every month. Thank you for that, guys. I keep trying to push Ibby and John as much as possible because I love these guys. They're my favorite Mets podcast right now. And not just right now, but for a long time that they've been my favorite podcast. And that's why I'm always in the chats with them, because I want to support them. So make sure you guys support them, like, share, follow them on Twitter and everything. And Instagram, just anything social media with them, follow. Make sure on YouTube you subscribe. And then I want to see you guys there. We're gonna have a good time. I'm probably gonna see me as a blur, but if you want to say hello to me, say hello to me. I'm gonna try to be as nice as possible. Don't take any offense to it because I'm crazy that day. You can ask Ibby. Like I get pulled in 1,000 different directions. So we're gonna try our best to have a great time. And I'll just touch on the Mets Fan Fest.
Sure.
I'm glad they're doing it. They don't tell you what they're actually doing. You don't know what the panels are. You don't know what the players are going to be around. Sure, they have an entry point at $40 to get in, but you don't get anything. And then they have their VIP, it's $900, and you still don't know what you get besides reception. So I would say come to us, and then if you don't like us, go to them too. At least meet some former players that you might have grown up liking. Who doesn't like Jose Reyes? You know, I mean, there's some people that don't. I understand why, but when you grew up at that time, Jose and David Wright were your guys.
Those were my guys, man.
86, Ray Knight was an MVP. Greg Jeffries, 87. He was the young guy that you were going to grow up with. Then you got Turk, who in the 2000s, 1999, 2000s, he was that guy that, hey, the superstition jumping over the foul line. It was great. We're trying to have a great time. I did this spiel way too long, but queensbaseball.com. Make sure you keep following until Mets do us part because I love these guys.
And again, I echo everything that Keith just said. If you show up, he will be a blur. He's always moving around. But I can also say he would still check in with me from time to time when he had a minute. Hey, is everything okay? You need anything? You need some water or something? He was always willing to help someone around him. Got to give the shout out here from Steph also saying Keith is really patient with answering my questions. I've never been to any kind of fan fest or con before, so she's thankful for the help that you gave her. And Steph, if I see you there, please say hello. It'd be nice to, hang out for the day and just talk Mets or what have you. It's going to be a fun time. I had a blast last year. I expect to have a blast yet again. A lot of good people, a lot of good memories that can be made. If you're a Mets fan, make sure you check it out. Make sure you get there at least, if not this year, at some point moving forward. It's a bucket list thing for sure. It's something that you definitely have to experience. And like I said before, I'm very thankful for the kind words from you, Keith, and I'm very thankful to be a part of the QBC family. Any way that I can help, I'm so thankful for that because, I respect it. I really do. I respect the work that you guys put in, and just being a small part of that means a lot. So shout out to everyone. Again, 820 of you are here, and I'm very proud of the last 3 weeks. The show continues to grow. If you haven't already, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel. I wish I was able to get into the chat more, but we were having such good conversation. I kind of got lost in things, and I'm sorry for that, but I saw everything that was posted. You guys were awesome in the chat today. You brought it. You kept things topical when we were talking about certain things. Shout out to every one of you. 820 is an awesome number to reach. If you haven't already, make sure, again, you like the video, you subscribe to the channel. We had some growth today. I'm very happy with that. Remember, once we hit 1,000, we're almost there. We're getting closer. This signed autograph of Edwin Diaz, it's going to go out to you. You have potential winner. Okay. Authorized JSA also for proof that it was signed. So again, that prize is going out to someone once we hit 1,000. All right. Slowly but surely, we are getting there. I have nothing but love for everyone that watches the show. Love for you, Keith. Love the time. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. QBC, December 7th. Can't wait to be there. Shout out again to the 820 plus of you that are here. And I'm going to sign off now because we've been doing this for nearly 2 hours, but it was a lot of fun. Next Wednesday, we are back. Juan Soto news continues to trickle in. Be on the lookout because if anything breaks when it comes to our New York Mets, myself and John, or one of us, will be sure to be on here talking things, whether it is Soto, whether it is Manaea, whether it is Burns, whatever it potentially could be. We're going to make sure that we are here providing you with something to break it all down. Nothing but love. Let's go Mets. And we'll see you guys next week.